Daniel Lacalle, thank you so much for joining us. Great to have you back on the show.
Thank you so much. It's a great pleasure.
You're actually currently in the Netherlands. That's where you're joining us from. And that's after an outsider won the election there. This follows a similar one that we just saw in Argentina as well. How much did the current economic factors in those countries play into these election wins?
Quite a bit, actually. If you think of what has made such a drastic change in the political landscape in the Netherlands, it is because of elevated inflation, continuous intervention from the government affecting the primary sector, agriculture, etc. So basically, a drastic reaction against the negative inflationary and economic situation, but also the views on immigration and on government intervention on environmental issues. In the case of Argentina, it's the desperate situation of the economy in Argentina. It's got 140% inflation, 40% poverty, and on top of that, in a country that produces oil and has an incredible farming industry, there's scarcity of gasoline and scarcity of meat.
I want to get to Argentina, but sticking with the Netherlands first. Wilders is seeking a Dutch Brexit in the Netherlands, noting the climate policies that are really hurting the farmers in particular. But what can one man do? What do we expect to see here?
Well, I think what we can expect at least is a significant reversal of the misguided so-called environmental policies, because they're not environmental, they're interventionist policies. They haven't really improved. In fact, they have worsened the situation for the people in the Netherlands. So I think quite a big reversal in that front, and quite a strong reversal as well in both the economic policies inside the Netherlands, but also regarding the European Union, because the Netherlands is suffering elevated inflation because of the monetary policy of the European Central Bank, and also a dire economic environment when it should not be in such a situation due to the many of the policies that have been imported from the European Union. So all those things can be tweaked and at least improved upon.
Speaking of inflation, you did mention, now turning to Argentina, the 140% inflation over there. Now, Javier Milei is saying he's going to shut down the central bank, calling that non-negotiable. How much does the central bank fit into the inflation we're seeing?
Well, certainly the central bank is one side of the coin, and a very important one, obviously printing pesos in a way that is completely incredible. But that's one side of the coin. The other side of the coin is fiscal policy. It's a country that has more protectionist measures than many of the communist regimes that we know, like Cuba or North Korea. So it needs to open the economy, it needs to cut spending, and it certainly needs to stop printing pesos and stop this inflationary nightmare.
Milei is an economist, and now he says he does have a plan to fight inflation, and that's dollarization. He is wanting to change the pesos to the US dollar. How likely is that to succeed?
Well, it's inevitable, because one of the problems in Argentina is that many of the politicians did not want to recognize the big elephant in the room, which is that the peso is a completely invalid currency that has failed. Argentina has more than 15 different exchange rates of the peso, all of them completely false, implemented by the government, and the peso is not used by citizens in Argentina whenever they can. So actually, dollarization is already evident within the Argentine economy, because no Argentine citizen, at least no sane Argentine citizen, is saving in pesos, and certainly all of the relevant transactions and purchases that Argentine citizens implement are already dollarized. So it's just a question of recognizing that the peso is a failed currency, like Ecuador did at the time, and like other countries did as well.
Sticking on the economic note, but zooming out, New Zealand actually just has the center-right National Party that just returned to power after 6 years of a more left-leaning one. Now, this prime minister is also putting a heavy focus on changing economic policies, as well as seeking to detach the country from globalist entities like the WHO. How do you read these right-wing trends that we're seeing around the world? Is this a trend?
I think it is a trend. I think what we're seeing globally uh, is that a lot of citizens in many countries are discontent with the left-wing policies aimed at sort of engineering a society that hurts the average citizen in many countries. The middle class is being obliterated. Many of the policies that have been implemented are purely interventionist. They're not even environmentally friendly or really social policies, but they have been implemented with a view of increasing control over citizens. And I believe that in democracies, most of the population is starting to get really angry about all these things that are sold as socially acceptable or environmentally positive and end up actually being negative, both environmentally and socially.
Quite fascinating indeed. Daniel Lacalle, thank you so much for your time.
Always a pleasure.